I would say the same about how could somebody successfully win the presidency who had never been engaged in politics, and my father.
What would you do if you woke up one morning and discovered that someone who once lived at the intersection of politics, luxury branding, and global celebrity had quietly reappeared in one of the most essential industries in America? What if that someone had strategically shifted her professional identity at the exact moment the nation entered one of its most vulnerable periods? And what if that shift happened so subtly, so seamlessly, that most people didn't even notice until it was already underway? These are the questions now swirling around Ivanka Trump, whose unexpected re-entry into the public eye has captured the attention of analysts, critics, supporters, and curious onlookers alike. Her new business venture, designed around food distribution, agricultural partnerships, and sustainability, has prompted a single, lingering question that refuses to fade. Is Ivanka Trump genuinely trying to help solve a national crisis, or has she positioned herself to profit from it? Curious to find out all the answers?
You know, the scale always tips in one direction, and I try to assess my life and assess everything.
Is there one thing you like more?
Stick with us until the end. There are some captivating insights and surprises waiting just for you. Don't miss out on the journey. To understand why this question matters and why it has become part of a much bigger national conversation, we must trace how Ivanka has evolved from fashion entrepreneur to political figure to the architect of a business operating at the heart of America's food system. The journey is not just about a brand shift. It's about power, timing, opportunity, and the thin line between public service and private gain. Ivanka Trump first stepped into the business world through the glossy doors of a luxury fashion empire bearing her name. For years, her brand grew rapidly, solidifying her image as a polished businesswoman the media adored. Women wore her shoes and carried her handbags as symbols of aspiration, ambition, and elegance. In interviews, magazines, and talk shows, Ivanka embodied the blueprint of the modern professional woman: confident, strategic, composed. She wrote about leadership, success, and balancing work with motherhood. She curated an identity that blended business savvy with glamour and high-profile access. But the moment politics entered her family's life at a national scale, nothing remained simple. Her father's presidential campaign instantly transformed her brand into a lightning rod for political opinions, cultural divides, and consumer activism. Support for her brand became a political statement.
Control businesses through access to the Paycheck Protection Program and the Small Business Administration's Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program.
So did the opposition. Retailers faced pressure from all sides. Consumers made choices based not on style or price, but on political allegiance and moral belief. In this storm, Ivanka eventually shut down the brand, citing a desire to dedicate herself to public service. It was a decision that reflected both political responsibility and business necessity. Yet even in silence, the brand's legacy and its controversies continued to hover around her name. For a time, she faded from the public spotlight. She raised her children, stepped back from political roles, and maintained a low profile. But reinvention has always been part of Ivanka Trump's skill set. And soon enough, she resurfaced, not with glossy lookbooks or runway collections, but with a completely different mission tied to something far more essential than fashion: food. Her new role placed her at the center of America's agricultural and food distribution system, a sector that had been pushed to its limits by inflation, disrupted supply chains, worker shortages, and climate-related challenges. It was a system Americans depended on daily, and one that was breaking in real time. Into that chaos stepped a business model that promised to reduce waste, connect farmers to markets, create new pathways for surplus produce, and offer solutions where traditional systems were falling short. At first glance, the move appeared altruistic. A pivot from luxury goods to feeding the country seemed almost poetic in its symbolism. Supporters hailed the effort as forward-thinking and socially conscious. Critics wondered whether Ivanka had chosen this industry because it was the perfect blend of high need, high visibility, and high potential for long-term profit. The question was not necessarily
For this nation's amazing small businesses, and in addition to this administration working tirelessly
whether she cared about solving the problem, but whether timing had given her an economic advantage. Food insecurity in America had reached staggering levels. Families were struggling to afford fresh produce. School meal programs were stretched thin. Farmers faced devastating losses when crops could not be transported or sold efficiently. Billions of pounds of food went to waste each year, even as millions of people went hungry. These overlapping crises created a new frontier for innovation, one with opportunities for those who knew how to operate in high-pressure environments. The arrival of Ivanka's venture during such a moment raised natural curiosity. Was this her attempt to build a new identity, one separate from the political turbulence of previous years? Was it a strategic repositioning designed to associate her with solutions rather than controversies? Or was this simply a savvy business move, one that allowed her to enter an essential industry at the exact moment demand for innovation was at its highest? Some observers argued that Ivanka's political experience had given her insight into large-scale logistical challenges. Others believed she had the network necessary to attract partners, investors, and policymakers willing to listen. And then there were those who worried that a politically connected figure entering the food supply chain blurred lines that should remain clear. What complicates the matter further is the legacy of her former brand.
nationwide, which is very important and responsive to the feedback we were hearing from farmers and ranchers across the nation.
Though the company closed, its past remains part of public consciousness. Critics remember the concerns about overseas production, international manufacturing, and ethical transparency. They question whether similar issues could arise within her new venture, even if the industries are vastly different. The larger story here is not just about Ivanka Trump or her company. It is about the evolution of business itself. In today's world, companies increasingly brand themselves as purpose-driven. It is no longer enough to sell a product. Businesses now sell values, impact narratives, and promises to fix systemic issues. This leads to deeper, more uncomfortable questions that linger beneath the surface. Should essential needs like food access be supported by private entities shaped by market forces? These questions don't accuse, they analyze. They are the kinds of questions every democracy must ask when private power expands during public hardship. As Ivanka Trump's new business continues to grow, it is clear that her pivot represents more than an entrepreneurial shift. It is a strategic redefinition at a time when America is deeply fractured and deeply in need. Whether this move ultimately becomes a story of positive reinvention, economic ambition, or both remains to be seen. Is she profiting from the crisis? The honest answer is complex, layered, and still unfolding. She may very well contribute meaningful solutions.
The shared goals that we have and that the American people want us to be finding common ground on.
She may also benefit financially from a system that desperately needs innovative ideas. These realities can coexist, intertwined, impossible to separate neatly. What matters now is transparency, accountability, and the willingness of the public to keep asking the difficult questions. Because while crises can break systems, they also reveal who is positioned to rise within them and who has the power to shape what comes next. For Ivanka Trump, this moment represents both opportunity and scrutiny. And for America, it is a reminder that every crisis brings new players into the spotlight, each carrying motives we must examine carefully, thoughtfully, and without fear of the truth that lies beneath. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.